I just put us on live. No time to
Oh, have
prep.
you? No time at all. Cool. How's it going, man?
Good, thanks. How are you?
I am very well, thank you very much. As per usual, whenever we speak to each other, we have to organically begin speaking as if we're just hanging out, man.
Just
That's what we
some
do.
banter, you know. We're just pals
Some
hanging out.
some pals hanging out, chilling out. So, just should we explain what happened for those who don't know?
Yeah, so we set up this. Facebook Live has a functionality where you can like get on and like talk to the camera, and everyone on the group sees it. But there's this feature in there which is like invite, which we both assumed meant invite another person into the call, but actually it's invite them to watch the video that you're making. And so I made a quick video that was like, "Hey, surprise for everybody," and then I pressed invite, and then I saw that there was like you have to press finish, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense. It's like complete or whatever." But I pressed finish, which ended the video. Um,
Yeah.
which was humiliating. And then Rob made a video. He tried to invite me, and I clicked it, and it just invited me to watch the fucking video.
Which have you? Because I saw you join, and I was like, Lloyd, like that wasn't the point of this. You were supposed to. Yeah, so I guess both of us had some stuff we wanted to talk about, but we both were going to go live at the same time by the looks of it. So we thought, screw it, why don't we just jump on? And if people want to hang out with us, they can hang out.
We got
People can jump in and out.
some peeps into. Yeah, actually, why don't I just put the fucking hangout? That's a good call. How do I do that?
Well, let's gradually invite people, because we should start the conversation, and then like a battle, like a Royal Rumble, more people should run in.
Yeah, and then they have to defeat one of us, and then we're out. It's like
yeah, that's a good idea. Perfect. So I can see that we have Dennis, we have Chex, we have Dawson, we have Jeff Doty in the chat. Hey guys, how's it going?
What a collection of heroes. My goodness.
I know, we're like a bloody guild of heroes right here. So what did you want to talk about, Lloyd?
Fucking snowflakes, Rob. Fucking snowflakes.
They're your favorite thing in the world, aren't they? I thought you loved snowflakes.
Like, well, snowflake is just like a badly executed. No, it's not just that. It's not. It's like a fucking stupid idea, is what it is. It's like when you make a character. I'm going to rant here, and you guys can sit there and take it. It's like when you make a fucking
man.
For a setting, and you're like, "Hey, you know, it'd be cool in this Roman game if I played a Dragonborn." No, you're being a snowflake, right? Or you're playing fucking Islam, and you're like, "Oh, I want to be a black guy." Like, you can't. There aren't any. Shut up. Like, you can't do that. You know, it's just like not a thing. It's not cool for you to be a weirdo. Just like fucking stick with the program. So Nico asked what a snowflake is. So it's this like slur for like players who make characters that are like really, really special in a setting. Like Dritz is a good, well, not Dritz himself, because he's like fairly well thought out, but like when you are playing D&D and you're like, I'm going to be a drow, but he's a good drow, and he's got a pet panther, and he fights with 2 swords, because that's cool. Like, it's that kind of stuff, you know? Like, if Dritz wasn't a real character, you like made that up, even though you're playing in fucking Waterdeep. Like, where are the drow coming from? God.
It's from from my definition, I'd say it is a see, I'd say maybe it's a deliberate thing, but you know what? I don't think it is a deliberate thing, Lloyd. I think it actually comes from a lack of self-awareness, I think. And it's not a bad thing. People play role-playing games sometimes for like the escapism factor of it, and I get that. And they want to be something that's kind of that resonates in the world. I get that. So I think that's where it comes from personally. And I think it's when people don't, you said in particular, like when people don't pay too much mind to the setting they're in, like you were saying with Dragonborn and Iscloth, which has become a thing now. Yeah, it's weird. And my response to Marquise for saying that there's, I don't know, did he say there's no such thing as snowflakes, or just badly executed?
No, he said that like the understanding of a snowflake is complicated, which sure, maybe it is. I don't think so. I think it's just someone looking for attention. But his explanation was that like it's like a badly executed character concept, you know.
Right.
Like sure, maybe, but I also think like that, you know, to me, if you were playing, I don't know, if you were playing in a low fantasy game, but you know there are playable fantasy races, and everyone is playing a human fighter, right? And everyone's like, "Yep,
Yeah.
we're gonna all be knights. That's what we're gonna do." And then you come along and you're
Mhm.
like, "Oh, I want to play a tiefling wizard." Like, and also that wizard, you know, his father was a demon and his mother was an angel, and I have a sword that was passed down to me from my father, and I have a pet fucking octopus, and like all this extra shit added on top that like is just like a lot of like, oh, look how cool and interesting my character is. It's not interesting. The interesting thing about your character is how they act and what they do. All this shit that you like make up on top of
Yep.
it, window dressing, and you can get fucked. That's what I think.
So I think as well, and you may agree with me, you may disagree with me, Lloyd, but I think you could categorize at least two types of snowflakes, even though it defies the definition of everyone being individual for being a snowflake. That's why it's called that. But so I think that there's the fluff snowflakes. So there's the backstory and the type of character they are. You know, they're special. They're not like anyone else. And then there's the snowflake, the mechanical snowflake that I have come across as well, where people dip in and out of particular levels of particular classes, even though it would make literally no sense in either the setting or the upbringing or background of the character to become this super character that is amazing at everything. I think that's the other way to look at it as well. Have you experienced that, Lloyd?
Yeah, I ran a I ran a mythical China one shot once, so it was set in mythical China on planet Earth. You know, where there are humans,
Yeah, that's
um,
pretty.
and I had a I come to that game, and it was a high level game. It was like, you know, fucking wuxia, sort of like Osayaka, and like fucking, you know, fantasy China, but like it was people, humans. And the guy came to that game, and he was a dragonborn, right? This is where the dragonborn thing comes from. It originates. He was a dragonborn necromancer, no, fighter level 1, necromancer level 14, so that he could wear like heavy armor and have a sword, but also cast spells and shit. And I hated it. I thought it was really dumb. You have disconnected, haven't you, Rob? Nah. Okay. Well, let's see. We got 100 people in the chat, which is great. So Nico says that's why I don't know why what one is, because I always restrict everything. Yeah, and you get way less snowflakes when you restrict. Like, and the reason that I have always done that with Iscloft is, or like I have learned to do it with Iscloft, is that if you don't do that, people will turn up and do the thing. Like they will come to your game and they will play a red cap with a scythe. Um, Check says, and his background is the long lost son of a king, but he spent many years as a merchant and knows every NPC in the world. Yeah, that's an extremely good example of a snowflake, where like you have this like insane background and somehow like it informs your character, but it doesn't really. It's just like a mechanical advantage, which is pure nonsense. Jeff says snowflake is character that while he doesn't fit the setting, or attempt to do something different and wacky for difference's sake. Yeah, it's not like you can play against type, which is interesting sometimes, you know. But like when you're doing it for the sake of being unique or being different, I think that's like lazy. Like it's much more interesting to me to like make your character interesting through their actions and through how you play them, as opposed to like because they have a funny hair color or something, you know. And so Nico says most people want to play something unique that stands out. Trouble is, if everyone does this, you get a crazy quilt. Yeah, and also nothing's unique anymore, right? If everyone, it's in Incredibles, I think. If everyone's a superhero, no one is. Like, yeah, I just think like there are better ways of making your character unique and interesting. It doesn't have to be. Doesn't have to be because you have an insane background. As Nico says, the snowflake color was pretty easy to melt. A kick, yeah. Let's see what else we got here. So Jeff says, I had a player in a home game one time we were all pretty new to the game. He comes to the table with some homebrew werewolf race with like 15 extra abilities. Claimed he just wanted to be the werewolf, and the extra abilities didn't matter. So there's a thing in like the Elder Scrolls games where you can become a vampire, right? Or like a werewolf or whatever. And I think that when you start playing role-playing games, um, you are overwhelmed with how much stuff there is, and your instinct is to be like, I want to be the weirdest thing I can. I don't want to be a person. I want to be a dragonborn wizard, or I want to be a tiefling fucking sorcerer or something, you know, like the weirdest thing that you could be. And you want to have your character be interesting, and you don't understand yet how to do that. Like that comes with practice and with work. So the longer that you play, I think the more you get an understanding that it doesn't need all this extra stuff on top. Doesn't need like the fucking crazy background. You don't need to be the son of a king who's been exiled. You don't need to be, you know, the only good drow in the world. Like, it's not necessary for your character to be interesting. But I think that takes some time to get used to. Check says, I had that happen with a gunslinging otter. No shit. Okay, you're going to explain that to me, Check, because I don't understand what that means, but it sounds ridiculous. So Sixtail Shadow says, human variant is not too shabby in 5e. No, it's not. It's actually really powerful. One of the more powerful like mechanical choices that you can make. But also, like, I just think that it's way easier to play a human because you are one. You know, like, you are a human and you understand the human condition, hopefully, to some extent. And so it's easier for you to like be a human being and like act like a human and put yourself in the mindset of a human. I think people really struggle when they play like an elf, because you don't live for 800 years, like, and you won't, you know, and no one ever has, and so you can't put yourself in that mindset very easily. Like it says in the PHP, oh, elves, you know, they think in long term, but like you don't, you can't, you know, because you don't live in the long term. You live in the now because you're a person, and your life is terrifyingly short. And it's the same when you're like a dragonborn. You're like this like weird saurian monster creature. How are you supposed to put yourself in the mindset of that creature? And I think then if you're not going to do that, you're not going to make the effort of like properly thinking about how to be that race or that different species, then just play a person. You know, if you just want the mechanical abilities, fine, just like reskin that race into being a person, and then it's easier and it makes more sense. So Jenna says human variant is my favorite. Absolutely, I pick it all the time. Harry says I'm English. Can't really call myself human. No, no, you can't. You imperialist pig. How are you, mate? I haven't seen you in a while. So Rob has just left this hangout, and I don't know if he's coming back. I hope that he is. He set this whole thing up, and he had shit to talk about. So now I'm just kind of filling air. But yeah, the snowflake thing. Like, to me, it's only a bad term. Like, I've never seen a good snowflake. Like, I wouldn't call a unique character concept, but I like a snowflake. To me, the special snowflake thing is that like you've made a character with the intention of being special, the intention of being interesting, and by that intention, you have made it uninteresting. If that makes any sense. Like, because you are trying so hard to make your character cool, it immediately becomes uncool. Not that like, you know, cool or whatever, but you know what I mean? I think it's like a difficult line. And I think for me, the most interesting characters are just people. I'm much more fascinated with like a butcher who, like, you know, has gone on an adventure somehow, has had to go on an adventure, than with the descendant of a king, the descendant of an elven king who, like, yada yada yada, you know, has gone through all this shit, and you know, they're level 1 and somehow they have like been through this crazy life and they've done all this crazy shit. I just don't get it. So Wicked Dan, which is Dennis, says, in all seriousness, no, my close second is a halfling reskinned as a goblin, which I guess is snowflakey. So I would not allow a goblin in a normal adventuring party, but I tend to run games where you have to be a person anyway. But that's a pretty nice, like, if you're going to run a game that has goblins in it, fuck, why not? Open Geography says, an adapted to setting. Yeah, that's my main concern with it, is like when So I ran a different Mythic China one shot once for Brigade Con, and the whole point was that everyone would like make like wuxia characters, right? Like fucking Chinese martial arts specialists. One of the players came as like a karate fighting black guy from like the future. Um, and what can you do when you're in the game, right? You've made the character and you're in there, and like you have to deal with it at the moment. But like I've had so many experiences like that throughout my illustrious gaming career that like I've had to now when I make a interest post or a game, I have to like state really clearly what you can play, because if I don't do that, people come as whatever they fucking feel like, and it breaks. Yeah, okay. So I tend to run games that have a very specific focus. Um, Even if it's not Islof, which is my Viking setting, it could be something else. But I tend to be very focused in what I want the game to be about and what like the feel is, right? And so if I'm trying to make this like Aztec themed game, and you come as a Native American, even, right? Let's say on the nicer end of things, or you come as a fucking conquistador, I'm gonna be pissed off at you because I set up the game to be this specific thing. So Jeff says, yeah, that's what I was going to say. The harder you try to make some weird, cool character, the less likely it is to be cool. Yeah, it's just like it's whiffs of desperation, you know. So Check says, Snowflake variant at first level, choose a participation trophy. Rob, you've returned. Nice of you to join me.
Mate, I can't even describe to you the horror that is the technical failings of my life, the entirety of my life, not just with my laptop. Yeah, sorry about that, folks. I froze and I had to like reset the laptop. So, what did I miss?
A lot of me ranting about snowflakes, basically. So I'm just going to finish reading these comments, and then we can get into what you want to talk about. Yeah.
Oh, okay, sure.
So Reality Break says, as a GM, whenever a player makes a character that is supposed to be unique, the only good dragon vampire with a soul drow above ground, I immediately start planning to bring in another one. Yeah, right? I think when you're the only something, I'm already bored with that concept. Like, when you're the only, you know?
Lloyd, you play in a character in a campaign. My cat, well, technically isn't the only one, but there's very few Dragonborn that, you know, I don't mind it so much. And the reason I did that is because Chad was very insistent upon being a Dragonborn. And I think if you remember originally I said no Dragonborn. Chad was like,
you're too nice.
Well, you know what? I thought about it, and I thought to myself, you know what? Like, which I've now gone on to sort of include in my world, I thought I'll rise to the challenge and see if I can make it work. And you still out them, so everyone else is yet to see if that is yet to work. But it's in terms of taxes, I think it's working pretty well. I like him, but I do get that the only is a kind of, it can be a very snowflakey kind of thing. I completely agree. But the thing is as well, like Lawkeepers is a very heightened. Also, it is about myth and legend and like the last warrior of an order. So I guess maybe that's why it's worked. But yeah, I'm kind of with you at the same time. Most games, totally. I'm trying to bring up the chat as well, so fill for me, Lloyd.
So Harry says, I found a good comment on Reddit about snowflakes. Unique means you came up with a good story that fits in the world, but if no one ever heard of your character, the world would go on just fine. Special snowflake expects the world to conform to them. Yeah, it's a good quote. Makes a lot of sense.
That is, yeah, definitely. That's a really good point, actually.
So Dennis says, that is what even annoys me as a player when people are obviously going against trying to jack the setting. Yeah, it's bullshit. Just don't do it. Work together. Make a thing. You know, it's all collaboration anyway. And if you're throwing spanners into the works, then, you know, get fucked. Like, just don't do it.
Just get fucked. That's all.
So then Jeff says, mundane motivations and goals are way cooler to me now. A guy who struggles with adventuring because they want to feed their family is way more interesting than some abstract creature man with magic. So I had said previously in this that, like, to me, I'm much more interested in normal people doing normal things than with the descendant of a king, you know, trying to reforge this ancient blade. And yeah, like, you know, just like give me some real struggle. Yeah,
I'm with you there, man. Like,
yeah,
and again, I think it depends on the game, but I'm with you in the sense of if you're wanting to get some kind of emotional connection through the storytelling, I think that the tried and true tested way is to have relatable characters dealing with problems that you would likely face in real life. So I'm completely with you there. Um, I think the trick is the balance, and I think snowflakes are incapable of such balance. Um, it's the thing that everyone says, and this is something that gets bandied around the community. Like I keep saying bandied around lately, Lloyd. I don't know why. Um, but
yeah.
it's
You're
something that goes
bandying
around.
that term a lot.
But everyone says, about the spotlight, which is, true. Like people should have their turn in the spotlight and things like that. It's just that I think with snowflakes, I think it's when they get their turn in the spotlight, it is then kind of like almost, like I say, not always knowingly, but it is an attempt to say, I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do so much more with this as well. I'm going to be so much better. Well, no, maybe not better. Like I think it depends on the person, but that's how I see it. Yeah. um, so we've got loads of people talking to us today, Lloyd.
We have, yeah, a crazy amount of people in the chat. What did you want to talk about, Rob? You had like a huge list of things that you wanted to mention.
Oh God, well I've forgotten half of them now because I was
There
trying to
was
get that back talking.
Rebels. There was
Yeah,
fucking.
Rebels.
Uh,
That's right.
what else was mentioned today? Snowflakes. Fucking. I think he said something about
Combat.
your descriptions. Your descriptions are shy.
Yeah, yeah, that's okay. So we'll go for that one. So, if those of you didn't see it, Lloyd did a really cool stream where he's walking through the streets of Dublin. You were talking about statues, weren't you, Lloyd? Why don't you just reiterate your point before I then go on to say mine?
Sure. So I walked around Dublin today. They do every day, and I noticed today, and I guess I always knew that, but I noticed today particularly that all of the statues in Dublin are of dead rebels. So our history is
Yeah.
defined, Irish history is defined a lot by rebellion and trying to get the fucking English out of here. And so most of the statues we have are like rebellion leaders who were executed. And so it's interesting because you have lots of young statues. You tend to not see that everywhere else. A lot of them are like in their 20s. Um, yeah, and so that was the thing. It was interesting to me that we have all these statues of rebels and very few statues, in fact, I can't think of any, um, statues of winners, of like conquerors, because we haven't conquered shit.
And the 500 years of oppression, isn't it? 500 years,
It's
Lloyd.
800, you fucking pig.
I'm sorry, I always lose count, Lloyd. I don't deliberately do that on purpose.
Oh,
I'm so
which
sorry.
colony are we talking about?
Which colony? Sorry, I can't remember which part of the world that you were that we
I've
were
got too
conquered. I do
many.
apologise. Yeah, well, we lost it all anyway, mate. So don't worry about that. A good thing too, in my opinion, before people start turning on me completely. But yeah, no. So Lloyd made this really, really great stream, and I started thinking about it, and I was like, what kind of statues do we have in our country? And lots of different people, but we do have the war heroes. Like I think of one of the most famous ones is Nelson's column, like a famous war hero, and he's put on like an actual pillar, like it's kind of over the top pomp and ceremony over here in the UK. But I started thinking about individuals and how they resonate through history, in particular. Project in Strapped Upon Avon, doing a lot of Shakespeare, lots of different Shakespeare plays, and that means I'm in Stratford upon Avon quite a lot. Now, it's a very famous town, but it's only famous because of Shakespeare. And I started thinking to myself, I was like, well, isn't that an interesting thing where there is an individual that has defined the existence of an entire place, an entire town? And I thought, isn't that a really cool thing to maybe try and instill in your games, I guess. And I have like that I can give, but I was just wondering, Lloyd, considering Iskloft is kind of like a rich and varied history, have you ever done that kind of thing before, or is that
Like, so there wouldn't be many statues in Iskloft. It's not in the culture to like build statues of people.
it's statues, but like you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
but
Like,
there are cities that were founded by people. There's particularly like there's Wormhole, which is like settled by Gunnar Gunnarsson, who's like the big legendary character in Iscloft who like conquered the place, and so he has this. Or now he's well long dead, but his family and there's now a city there have this like huge castle, um, that was built by giants. They conquered it from them, and yeah, there's like this relic of that person.
That's pretty cool. Like I like that an awful lot. And yeah, because I was thinking to myself, well, Shakespeare, he's known as the Bard, and then I started thinking in my stupid brain on my commute, I'm like, what would have happened if it was a D&D bard doing it? What would have happened if it was magic involved as well? And I started to think to myself, well, then if it's someone who's influenced the world so much, and obviously Shakespeare provided a lot to language and to the way that we tell stories and stuff, what would it be like in a heightened reality like that of Dungeons and Dragons and things like that? And I kind of wanted to get the opinions of the chat as well. Generally, when I do these things, I kind of ask people in the chat if there's something in your world that has been influenced, like an entire town or a city where it literally revolves around the existence of one person. Because I do not doubt for a second that if Shakespeare hadn't been born and worked in Stratford upon Avon, that town would not be the way it is now. Do you know what I mean? So,
Yeah, no,
and I was thinking to myself, there's only a certain few places in my setting that have been, influenced by just one person. And this is something I really like about your setting, Lloyd, which is something that I'm probably going to have to do a bit more thinking about. I like that you have characters that exist within a continually moving timeline in your setting, which is something I haven't really considered. My setting only moves in my mind when Lawkeepers is being played, for example, and that's because it's just the one campaign.
right.
I like the idea of there being staple important characters that are operating, and that's something that I've yet to like fully delve into. And I was just wondering, because it intrigued me, like, how do you keep track of that? Do you like think day to day? You wake up in the morning and say, "Oh well, Gunnarson's doing this today," or do you know what I mean?
I guess like whenever I am making a game, I think when it's set. So there's kind of like for Iskloft, we've kind of done about 1,000 years of history, but we haven't actually played through most of that. But like we've got, it's like bookended, like there's a really early bit and a really late bit.
Yeah.
So for me, I have a couple of characters. Like Gunnar is one of them, and there's always been a Gunnar Gunnarsson in Vormhold, and some people think it's the same guy. Some people think it's just like genetics; they look similar, whatever it might be. That is unclear as to. I won't reveal that here. There's also Ogvai, who's Ogvai three names, who is a Jotnet, this giant fucking monster, and he's always around. And they can be killed, these giants, but when they get killed, if they haven't finished their mission, the Jotnet or the Jotun, the actual Jotun, like the Titans in this setting, just send them back. And so he just appears all the time. He's never really not in this stuff. He's always around. And so he can be a bad guy in any stage. But because I have lots of the players who play frequently in my setting, they'll have encountered him with other characters and killed him, or he'll have killed them. And so every time I bring him in, everyone's like, "Oh, it's Ogvai," I don't have to do any major like build up because they're like, "Oh, this fucking guy," which is great. But yeah, I don't think about it too much. I just like think when I'm making a game, I think of when it's set, and it follows.
I guess that is a difference between mine and yours then, Lloyd, is the fact that you kind of have like this historical timeline that you're dipping in, and I'm kind of like, I don't know, like, do you have parts that you've done in the future and then gone back into the past? Because the way that I run my games is that basically Lawkeepers is up to the very, very moment that it's continuing, and then when we stop, it stops. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I definitely
that's really interesting.
Run like modern Iskloft, which is like what the setting book I'm making is, where like there are Gunlanders because Gunnar Gunnarsson conquered a place, and there are Iron Eyes because Brynjolf Agnarsson had like been an enemy of Gunnar, and there's a place, and that's a thing. So that would be like modern, but most of the games that I play or that I ran have been before that. And I have run some that are after that. Like we've done the end of the world, we've done Ragnarok and stuff. And so there's bits on either side. It's a huge beetle just like flew right in front of me. Like, fucking hell. But yeah, we've done like a big scope, like lots of different parts of Isloft, all over the place.
That's pretty rad. I really like the idea. So I don't know how we got onto that, because we were talking about places that are defined by one individual. But I guess I don't know. I guess I need to work on that a bit more. Like I have one place in my setting called Stanton's Well, which is a town that is so it surrounds a well, but the well is mystical in nature. And I'm not going to go into the actual story of it, but that place is famous because of one man, because he's to do with the reason why the well has mystical properties. But I suppose I think I'm gonna have to give a bit more thought into that, actually, because I've been doing quite a lot of work into sort of fleshing my setting out quite recently. Dude, whilst he's on the table, though, can we talk about Ogvike really quickly? I guess this is now just descending into just a standard chat where we talk about other stuff. Yeah. Just a chat. But, I really like that character. He's really terrifying.
He's my favorite character that I've ever made, and everyone hates him, which is great. He's just like a guy.
Murderous giant.
He has a job to do, his job is to like make sure that the end of the world happens, which is really important. And everyone wants the world to end, like the gods do and the giants do. Everybody wants it because it's like necessary for the new world to happen. So everyone knows what's going to happen. Everyone knows who's going to kill who. But there are complications that could happen, and Ogway's job is to make sure that those complications are fixed so that the end of the world can happen. That's his job. But he also has like thousands of years in Isloft to piss around in when nothing's happening. And so in that time, he's like made himself this mercenary company because he's an incredible fighter. And so people hire him to like deal with their problems or to fight their wars and stuff. That's who he is.
I thought in particular, for those who, I won't go into spoilers because it is a great game and you should go and watch it whilst you're on this channel. But there's a particular encounter in that game where I can't remember whether his reputation preceded him. I can't remember if they knew who he was. Lloyd.
Yeah, they did. They had fought a battle against Ogvai's bastards.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I'm talking about Hunted.
Yeah. So they had fought a battle. They had been rebels. The players had been rebels, and they had fought against Ogvai's bastards, and they had been crushed, basically. And so they knew roughly who he was. He would have been leading that battle. But I'm not sure that the players knew. Like I know Nico knew because he's played in 1,000 Discgolf games, but I don't know that the other two players knew who he was. So it was definitely I could feel the fear in Taylor and in Jeff, which was fantastic.
Yeah, and watching it was tense. I was really, really frightened for the characters anyway. Watching that, which is a testament to, I guess, that character, and also Giants. Well, yeah, he's pretty scary. He's a pretty scary dude. Do you want me to read some of the stuff? We got a few more things in the chat. Do you want me to give it a read?
Yeah, go for it.
So I don't know if I'm up to date in the chat or not, but this one was to do with what we were just talking about. So Jeff Day from Encounter says, yeah, I really like the idea of key point reoccurring setting characters like that. It gives people a really cool thread to follow through the world. And I agree. I like that it's kind of like a living, breathing thing that's continually... and M6L Shadow says...
I mean, like Gandalf is one of those characters, and like Elrond are those kind of characters. They're always around. They've lived forever, and they're always in the thick of it when things happen, So it's cool to have like those, what do you say, keystone characters, that are like always around.
Absolutely. Not really like that. M6L Shadow says, so mine is a little silly, but in one of my worlds there is a country called Red Hood Woods. where the Little Red Riding Hood story comes from, and there are Red Hood Rangers that watch over the forest. Oh, that's pretty cool. So like, there's
great. Love that.
that's pretty awesome. I like that sort of like the realization of what was really going on and what inspired the Grimm fairy tales in the first place. Perhaps like that's pretty rad. I like that. Jeff Zoe then says Ogvi is such a cool character, out of character, but such a bastard in character. I love it. Because I've heard the name, but that was my first real encounter with him. I was so freaking scared. I could tell. My goodness me. RP Geography says, yeah, it was tense in the end too. And Czech says, we had a sit-down talk with him one time. It was a pretty cool moment.
Yeah, that was great,
wow.
actually. In the Jotunnet campaign that I ran, Ogvi had been opposing them all this time, and he like went and sat with them one night when they were camping. He just like walked out of the icy tundra and like sat down at their camp and like drank some mead with them, and he was talking to them, and he had said something like, look, you cannot go any further. My master is there and I can't let you go there. And they were like, well, we have to. And he was like, okay. Well, then in the morning, we'll fight and I'll kill you. And they were like, okay. But then they had this like lovely evening where they were just like, they sat and drank with him, which was great. But then morning came and a giant wolf devoured the sun, because that's what happens in Ragnarok. And so morning never came. they fought anyway. It was great.
That's incredible. No, I really like that. That's so pretty rad. And I suppose, Lloyd, you did a really good job at that when it happened.
At what?
I'm just doing a really ham-fisted segue, mate. Just go with me.
I didn't hear you.
Oh, did you not? Oh, I'm so sorry. No, I was saying, you did a really good job at describing that.
Oh, yes, I did, Rob.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. So another thing I wanted to talk about today, and I think this is something that, to be fair, we have kind of covered this in the topic in the thread today regarding descriptions. Sam DiMercurio was clickbaiting as is like a new form of the hobby that I enjoy as well. Oh, Lloyd, it's funny. And so we were talking about combat, and I posted into the link our episode of the Dice cast about combat, because we do cover it an awful lot there. If you haven't listened to it, go ahead and check it out over on SoundCloud, the Dice Cast. But I wanted to talk about something that I think has become. I don't know if there's to take too much stock in this, but this is a thought I had today about combat and descriptions. So the idea is that Sam was saying that combat, it's really slow in D&D, and I usually posit that it depends on how slow. That's it. Combat is slow and boring in D&D, and I said, well, it's only slow and boring if you make it slow and boring. Yeah. One of the things that came up was the fact that descriptions, because we are narratively minded players, a lot of us, that a lot of people will be, describing the combat and then it will slow it down. But now I want to talk about how long descriptions aren't necessarily good descriptions, and I think that's something that you can attest to as well, Lloyd. In fact, Lloyd, I think your descriptions are regimented in the length in your games. You're very, very, very smart. You roll and you say what numbers you have, and then you just go ba 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 done.
I think that's essential,
and I think that's so that's what I kind of want to talk about, because I think our community gets so caught up now on the fact that, we're narrative players and we're trying to tell a story and stuff and things like that. I think some people get carried away, and I think that's probably one of the issues. What do you think about that?
It's a load of fucking wankery is what it is. Like, it's no, I did it back in the day when so maybe 6 months after I got into the hobby, we got into this introduction thing, this character introduction thing, right? And you'll see it if you go back in time and look at some of the older games, where you would start the game, and I would be like, okay, Rob, introduce your character, and you would then have like a 6-minute introduction for your character, where you would be like, he walks slowly towards the table, and he picks it up, and it shines like and like we did a lot of that back in the day, and we got really into our descriptions and really into like that as the art form.
Yeah.
But we grew out of it. Almost all of us grew out of it, and I find now that for me the most interesting part of RPGs is the dialogue and the discussion in character. That's what I think is the most fascinating bit. So I think that like when you're playing, your focus should be on that. And when you're in a fight, and D&D is so mechanical heavy, what I always do, when you just said, is I roll the dice, I tell you the numbers, and then you say, yep, and either the thing is dead or it's not, and then I tell you what happens. And I tell you what happens as in like, I lift the hammer and I smack him, right? Is most of the time what I say, except I sometimes change the words around a little bit. But like, I don't think you should get too wrapped up in like this big, description thing. I just don't think it's necessary. I think like it's not the interesting part.
Yeah, the thing is, like, I know I can go off on my descriptions. I get that, but usually, at least I like to think that when I'm doing that, there is a purpose for me to do that. If I want something to be a surprise, generally speaking, I keep it really short and sharp, and I talk to you sometimes in a panicked way, or I try and embody sort of like the emotion that's going through the situation at that time. Yeah, I can definitely go flowery sometimes, but when this is the thing that gets me. This is the thing that gets me, and I've seen it happen a lot. Okay, and it's something that I think shouldn't be done. Is when a character has said they've done something in their turn of combat or whatever, and then there is the technique of saying, oh, and let's use Lawkeepers as an example. So Azarax has cast a spell, and then say it's someone else's turn and say, okay, well, as I watch and I look at Azarax casting this spell, I then move in for the kill, blah, 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 blah. That's fine. But I've seen people go back like 5 or 10 minutes in the actual narrative of the story, and they say, well, when I returned home, I saw this, and I was thinking to myself, well, what's going on? How are we going to prevent this problem from arising? And then the combat erupts, and then I draw my sword, and then I mean? like it's like you're constantly rewinding and then playing back to the beginning, and then on to the next part of the discussion. And that is something that I've seen a lot, and I think if people are concerned about the way that their combats and how long they're taking, then that might be a good thing to look into to see if that's happening in your game. Because I've seen it happen. I've had it happen in my games. So I think it's about
something to be wary of. I think because like there is real value in like the descriptions, and like it's really good for immersing you into a game. But there's a fine line, between like being descriptive and like stroking yourself. Like it's a fine line. I think there's a point where it's just like, and then blah blah, and just like the moon shines on the blade, and just fuck off. Just tell me you hit him with the sword. Like I don't know. Like
no, I'm with you. I'm really with you.
And excitable people in the chat. We might want to read some of this out.
Yeah, go ahead. I have something to add, but we'll do it after.
You go first.
Oh, okay. No, all I was going to say is that as someone who runs combats, and I'm very proud of the way that I run combats and encounters, and I'm someone that I like to set a pace, and I then try and sort of hit people with enough energy and enough enthusiasm to essentially make them match my pace. And I find that when that doesn't happen, I'm sat there sitting on my hands, sort of bouncing up and down, waiting for to finish, so I can keep it going. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
So to the chat.
Lionel says, yes, unfortunately, I've been guilty of being that player that goes on too long. No, you haven't, Lionel. That's not true. You are an exceptional player, and don't be hard on yourself. Jeff says, yes, I agree. If you're taking more than 20 to 30 seconds, maybe a minute tops for your turn total, then you either need to hurry up on the rules or tone down the flowery descriptions. Certain really intense moments can warrant longer descriptions, but it's just a normal attack in the fight, keep it moving. Absolutely. And that's what we're talking about, right? And I try and do it as well. is like I try and set a pace with the combat, and I say like, this happens. What happens to you? What are you doing? You know, and you do that as well. I think that's a really effective way of getting people excited and getting them to talk quickly, because I don't want, you know, Rob, you see Nico's character get smashed in the face with a shield. He's on the ground, his nose is broken. What do? You're like, well, when I see the shield smash into his face and it bursts like a overripe watermelon, then I don't want that. I want you to go, fuck, okay, I stabbed the guy. That's what I want.
No, that's not what you do, Lloyd. I say, so 10 minutes before Nico's character got smashed in the face with the shield, I was actually embroidering a fair hawk onto my barding of my horse. And I thought to it, yeah, that's exactly what I do.
You know what people do as well? It's like something happens and they do like a match cut, you know, like as if it's a film. And maybe that's fine, but like it's not a film. So sometimes they're like, oh, I see the shield smash into the face and it reminds me of the time when I was a child, and fuck off, just don't. Solana says, I like some descriptions, but keep it brief. Yeah, just like that sentence, keep it brief. Jeff says, yeah, add some descriptions. It makes the game more fun and interesting, but don't write a novel about it. Yeah. Czech says, a good writer knows how to pack a punch in a few sentences. But through word choice and snappy descriptors, I think it should play the same. I can't read anymore. I think it should play the same. It takes less than 10 seconds. Yeah. 10 seconds is a good mark.
Yeah. And to go back to we were talking about Shakespeare earlier, the famous dude, he said, brevity is the soul of wit. It basically means, you know, like the briefer that you can make it, the sharper and more effective it'll be. So yeah, that's a really, really good point. Really good point.
Then there's some fucking around here with Dickens and some more jokes. That's all.
That's all. Just some more Dickens. Yeah. What else were we going to talk about? Or was that it?
Okay, so we just got a question, which is a great question. Actually, that's a good point.
Oh, cool.
How do you guys feel about inner thoughts and mental flashbacks?
I would say, like, every now and then it's fine. But generally speaking, if it's going to be you generally get like I think you wait for a prompt from the DM. I think personally, like if it's like we were saying, if it's like really brief, he said my mind flashes to a second when I remember how my brother was killed, and I draw my blade and I go into for the attack. Like that's fine. Like you can say that what your character's dwelling on. Talking about what is going on inside the mind of your character is perfect. That's why we do this. But I think if you're going to go into a lengthy flashback of like how you receive the sword that you're now holding in your hand that you're now about to plunge into like just a normal goblin, yeah, don't bother. wait till you get the cue, I think.
I think as well, like it's the, you know, you can do those quick thoughts, certainly. Like you can do like, oh, and you can do the image descriptors too, right? It looks, when I hit him, it looks like this. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be like, it looks like I hit him with a hammer. It can be like, it looks like, you know, I smashed an overripe melon or whatever. But there's a time and place. And I think that like when you're fighting a boss and it's the killing blow, that's the time for you to like be introspective and think about what it looks like and think about the imagery around you and stuff. But not always, and not every time, because it's like, when I mentioned this earlier in the stream, actually, like in Incredibles, where the kid says, if everyone's a superhero, no one is. And if every moment is a beautiful description, none of them are, right? Like it's using it sparingly makes it interesting.
No, that's an amazing point to make. Fantastic. Using the Incredibles as well, which wins you points, Lloyd. Excellent stuff. Yeah, absolutely. And I think the same goes for like you say at the point of the death of whoever you're fighting or whatever, but also when I think it's fine if your character goes down, you can say like what the last thing was that they're thinking before they get like sliced down into unconsciousness, or if they're killed. Especially if they're killed, like if it's a death, then yeah, totally go for it. But if it's just another attack, yeah. I think another thing as well, which is something that I've been wanting to try, and I was gonna try it last session until we of the Law Keepers, until I then realized that what was happening is going to take longer. Is to pre-roll damage. We get into the, you know, I think that's a really good thing to do, especially in the big battles of against the shadow as well, Lloyd. I've gone into the habit of pre-rolling damage and then only rolling my attacks when it's my turn. So then if I hit, I know what damage I have instantly. So I don't have to do like a whole bunch of adding up. And that's because I'm not like super amazing at maths either. Like although weirdly D&D has taught me to be better. So you know, there's a silver lining to everything. But I think that's like a neat little trick just to speed things up as well, because damage is the thing that I think takes the longest.
Yeah, I tend to, when I'm playing, like when it's not my turn, I'll roll my attacks and my damage, and then I'll be like, I got this. Is that hit? Okay, this much damage. I got this. Is that hit? This much damage. And then I'm like, okay, that's the maths and shit out of the way. Now I have about 30 seconds, possibly less, to shoot the shit for a bit about what happens, and then I'm done. You know, because it is a game. You know, you're playing a game, and there are rules to the game, and you have to like do that bit first. Yeah. I think, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some more in the chat. Do you want to hear some of it, Lloyd?
Hit me.
In counterbalance, Jeff Doty says,
"Oh, Rob, are you gone again? For fuck's sake!" Yep. See you, Rob. That's inconvenient. So, our photography says, I agree. Like when you did Lore Keepers as the intro, but I'm with you. I don't want it unprompted. Yeah, it depends. I think there are times when it works really well unprompted. If the DM says to you, "What's your character thinking?" and it's in downtime, you know, that's a great time for you to go into. I ran this campaign, Last Conclave, which is on this channel if you want to check it out. Star Wars about young Jedi, and we had this like pretty intense moment, and basically they had like left a place and they were traveling somewhere else, and they were going to be on the ship for about 2 weeks. And when they were on there, I asked one of the characters, who was played by Andrew Knapp, what is Pon thinking? What's he doing in this time? And he like had this beautiful thing about like meditation and combat and what was going through his mind, and it was like really beautifully done. And that was a great time for that. That was a really good time for that to happen. But there are other times when it's not a good time. Like if you're in the middle of a fight and I say, okay, you've just seen your friend fall. What are you thinking? And you go into a 10-minute monologue. That's a bad time for that. So I think a lot of it is like using your cop on, understanding when your moments are, choosing your moments. So Ellen says, right on, gents, time and place. Not when you're killing orc number 3. Yeah, you don't need to like crack out the monologues for every orc that you kill. Jeff says, short thoughts and emotions are really cool, but crazy flashbacks and scenery should be reserved for rare and special circumstances. Yeah. Like we say, not orc number 3. Rob, you're back again. For fuck's sake.
God damn, man. At least my computer didn't crash this time. Just Hangouts. Goodness me. I don't know what's going on today.
Oh, apart.
I know. It's a good laptop as well. I don't know why. I don't know what's going on with this. Yes, sorry about that, Jeff. I was midway through reading your comment, and then I realized Lloyd's face wasn't moving. He looked really accusingly at me, and I was like, he knows I've frozen. Did you read what else is in the chat?
Some of it. We're looking at checks here. What I do enjoy is the prompted, may not be in combat, but that DM prompted by character background that comes out of nowhere makes you think on your feet. That's super effective as well. Although it doesn't work with every player. I know that there are players who struggle to improvise or like aren't as comfortable with it. Like I love it, and I love when I'm thrown a Marius, you know what, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll figure it out. But it's not for every player. But I really enjoy those moments, and I think you get a lot of good stuff in those moments.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you want to read some?
Let me see. Why don't you read one more, because I need to find out where we are in the chat, and I'll find it.
So Lionel says, yeah, like when they find their slain brother, great time to do a scene. Exactly. When you have like a moment of great drama or intensity, that's the time for you to crack out the monologues and the long stories.
Yeah.
And Jeff says, I'm a huge advocate for pre-rolling. Makes things so much faster and smoother. There's just no question in my mind that it's way more effective. I guess there are some people who want to play the game very D&D-ish, if you know what I mean, and they want to be rolling everything when it happens, and they want to be rolling up the dice. But those people can get hooked.
Well, this is the thing, Lloyd. This is why. No, I'm totally with you. But this is why I leave the attack rolls to when it's my turn, because then there's still that sense of tension. There's still that
Sure.
sense of whether I'm going to succeed or not. But it just means that the outcome is then ready for me, so I don't have to. I don't have to leave everyone wait for me to do some maths quickly. So I completely agree with pre-rolling damage, and I think the best thing to do, so you still capture the chaos of the dice roll, is to have it on at the moment. So yeah, RPG Geography says don't keep us in suspense, Rob. This is what I do, man. It's what I'm all about, man. And my failings as a technical member of society. Um,
Yes,
are you still there?
I am. Yeah,
Okay.
I was waiting
All
for you
right.
to say something.
I said, do you want me to roll the next? Read the next
Oh,
one.
sorry, I didn't hear that.
Oh God, I'm cutting out again. So oh God. Jeff says, especially for big spells, multiple attacks, etc. Don't roll 8 individual d6s of your damage during your turn. Do that beforehand. And then Lionel says, or use a dice roller. That's another one as well, where it does it all for you. That's a um, another way of doing it. Although Chex believes that we're heathens for discussing such a thing. You're all heathens. Pre-rolling dice rollers, bah.
Bones all the time. What are you talking about? Back in the day when bones were the thing, it was all he ever used. Fucking checks. You wee bastard. That's my Scottish accent.
It's good. It's really good, and I bet Chex
Thanks.
isn't annoyed by that whatsoever.
Oh, hi. That's all I
Do you
got.
want to hear? Do you want to hear? Do you want to hear my trigger for going Scottish? And Chex is gonna hate or love this,
Go
depending.
on, yeah.
And I said it in Lawkeepers because I had a character show up, stereotypically called Duncan because he had a Scottish
Yes.
accent. And my trigger is, I'll smash your head in with a fucking rock.
A rock.
With a rock, pal. With a rock, pal. Roll the R, and
See
you
you,
get it.
pal. See you.
Yeah. So Chex is probably hating me right now, but there we go.
Oh, yeah. You know, casual, whatever that is.
Absolutely.
All right, Lionel asks,
Chex.
which is a good question. What do you do when you have a player that's droning on?
That's a really good point. And you know what? I think sometimes I'm too nice, Lloyd.
Yes, you are.
I think I'm no, and I'm on board with that. Like I'm crippled by the by being too polite sometimes. I'm totally there. I guess. Well, go on, Lloyd. Would you have you ever turned around to say to someone? Have you ever said like, "Hurry the fuck up"?
I don't know. I think that if people fuck around for ages, I would just have something appear or a noise happen. Or I do it frequently actually with like wolves and stuff. Like if you're in hunted, if there was not that people were droning on, but like if they were stuck in a place for too long, I would just like howl or I would bark,
Yeah.
and there would be like, oh, there is a thing happening, you know. Or if it's a battle or a siege, and it gets too introspective and too kind of relaxed, I would have like a, you know, and like something is happening to keep the
No,
shit alive. You know, that's probably the
I get that.
best.
Yeah, and that's something common that I do as well, because you don't want people hanging around a 1-2, but especially when you're playing online and stuff, you only got a certain amount of time to actually run the session or whatever, especially for you and I, Lloyd, who are like awake really really late at night a lot of the time. But there is a difference, I've got to say, because with hunted, like, and obviously the players in that game were exceptional, like exceptional players, because it's survival. You're obviously wanting to plan your next move and be careful about it, and that was you applying the pressure. But that is slightly different from telling someone to hurry up, you're taking too much time. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
Like I'm because sometimes, like when there's like a little break in what they're saying, like sometimes I will try and interject and say, okay, that's cool, then we're doing this, like, and I try and sort of wrestle the control back off them, but like that can be a bad thing, and sometimes you don't get to do that. So have you ever turned around to someone and say, you are taking way too long, stop navel gazing and hurry the fuck up?
I don't know if I've done that.
Because I don't think I ever have.
I probably haven't. I
And
am.
is that wrong? Is it wrong to do that,
No,
or is it?
I think it's just polite. I
It's
don't know if
polite
I've done
to
that. I
not.
don't know if I would. I think I'd feel very uncomfortable telling somebody like, "Here, come on," you know,
Yeah, that's what I mean.
because for that person, they're probably putting a lot of work into this monologue that they're doing, you know. So I don't know. Yeah, it's a
But
tricky
too
one.
much work.
Yeah.
Too much work. I don't know, because I've never done it, and I don't think like I think I'd have to be like really. I don't know.
Right, my ambition is this year to tell someone to shut up and hurry up. That's I'll do it at some stage this year.
Dude, all right, we'll both do it. Like it'll be progress for me to sort of break down the crippling walls of etiquette that I so happily hide behind. So there you go. Who asked us that question? I've missed where we were.
Oh God, I don't know. Lionel, some time ago.
Okay. Oh, yeah. So, okay. So, Nick Dawson says, "Make something happen." Yeah, like what you were saying.
Share a
There,
brain,
Lloyd.
me and that man.
Yeah. Make a wolf howl in the distance. That's spot on. And Check says, use their descriptions against them. Checks, if you haven't already, I'd like you to elaborate on that. But what do you think that means, Lloyd? Use their descriptions against them.
I would think that means if they're talking for a long time about something specific, like, oh, I remember, let's go back to this fucking melon thing. I remember when I was a kid and I saw, or there was a pie on a windowsill and I really wanted it and I like approached it stealthily and tried to like sneak up on the pie and like, oh, make a deck save because you've been stealthily snuck up on, you son of a bitch, you know?
Oh, that's good. Yeah, you were too busy sort of like thinking back to
Yeah,
your past. That's quite good actually. So you actually taking the moment in the game where the character is thinking, I think back to this, and you're like, well, you're still in a fight. You're still in an
yeah.
encounter. If you're busy thinking about sneaking up on a pie when there's a dragon rearing up behind you, I'm so sorry. So that's pretty cool actually. I really like that. I'll definitely give that a go. Thanks, Jax.
Think of your sword and his sword and nothing else.
Yeah,
There's a Troy
absolutely.
quote for you. Great film.
Yeah, Troy. It gets a lot of it gets a lot of flack, doesn't it,
It gets a
Troy?
lot of flack. I'll tell you what, my friends and I, frequently go and play video games in somebody's house, and we just sit there and we hang out and play video games. But we always have Troy on in the background. It began like 6 years ago, I think. We would just like watch a movie, but we would have it on the background when we play games, and it was Troy. And so it's become the tradition now that we just have Troy on repeat. So I've seen that film like 100 times, if not more. Um, and I
I've
think
seen it a
it's
lot as well.
start to finish. I can do the whole thing. It's fantastic. It's filled with incredible one-liners. Um,
Never switch sword hands.
yes, yeah. There are no pacts between lions and men. Fucking hell.
And my favorite, which is when but before my time is done, I will look down upon your corpse and smile. That's a good line.
Yep. I really like sometimes the gods bless you in the morning and curse you in the afternoon. It's a great one.
I want to watch Troy again. Everyone,
Yes.
that's your homework. Everyone watch Troy. And I see its flaws, but I think it's a wonderful film. It's just got good stuff in it. Okay, so where were we? Lionel says I roll my attack and damage at the same time, so that if I hit the damage is ready. That's good, man. I like that. I mean, like I explained, I roll my damage before just so I can do the arithmetic when the focus isn't on me as well. But that's just me. So yeah. Jeff says, yeah, worst case, you can interject something into their monologue to move things along. Your memory is suddenly broken by a sword swinging at you. What do you do? Yeah.
Yep,
Good
that's a
stuff.
great technique.
Goodness me. Lionel says, I'm way too nice, though. Inside, I'm thinking, hurry the fuck up. That's my problem, man. That's my problem.
The check says I'm for the passive aggressive route. Aye, all right, pal. Apparently that's for you, Rob.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. I hope I didn't offend you to your core too much.
He does have the most powerful Scottish accent that I've ever heard in my life, though. Does Chekhov?
It's thick. It's glorious.
It's viscous. He's got a viscous, thick accent. Very hard to understand. Like treacle getting through that thing.
It is like treacle. That's a really good way of it, in a good way. Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
RP Geography says, how do you decide when to throw a curveball in a battle? Like, is there a way of doing it that would be unfair to the players?
Okay.
Well, you like being unfair to the
Yeah,
players,
let me
don't you,
just
Lloyd?
say,
But sorry, go ahead.
because I can't hold myself back, there is nothing wrong with being unfair to your players. There's nothing wrong with being mean and mean-spirited and underhanded, because there are 5 of them, and they're all thinking together on one plan, and you only have 1 brain, and they've got 5, so you have to be unfair, or else they'll just smash everything you put at them. So I would say, how do I decide when to throw a curveball in a battle? I would assume that if I'm planning a battle, there will be at least one unexpected thing that happens, something that they probably won't predict, so that it keeps them guessing and it keeps them nervous,
Definitely, and I think you know what. To continue that point further, I see it as a something that I really enjoy about D&D is to tell is to be giving your descriptions and telling your story and including information that is relevant to the surprise that is coming later, and it is sowing the seeds of what is going to happen. So something doesn't just come out of the blue. You have laid the foundation of what is going to happen. Now, if your players are smart enough, then I think to myself, yeah, fair play, they caught me. Case in point, early in the Lawkeepers, I had a kind of hench person of Advent, the main antagonistic force in my world at the moment. And they defeated Lorelei. She's this drow, right? Lloyd knows what I'm talking about because he's the fucker that got me. He's the one that got me. But it's a tried and tested thing, and basically Lloyd's character was interrogating her, and then she bit a suicide pill in her mouth or something to do with alchemy, and she died. She poisoned herself. And at the very end, after the characters have been discussing what their next move was, Lloyd's character, just in case, because he's a witch hunter, goes over to her and slits her throat, just in case. And I then go, blah, blah, and then she like comes spluttering back to life and then dies because, yeah, she'd faked her own death. So I had laid the seeds, but Lloyd picked up on it. But then later in the episode, I got him later on. So it all depends. It all depends. So as long as you're upfront with certain bits of information, I'm cool with it.
Yeah, and what's good about those kind of putting those like secrets in there, so like that made me feel like a witch hunter because I had caught that thing. I was like, oh, just in case, and because I was able to do that, and then she actually died. I was like, fuck, I'm a witch hunter. That was great, So it works either way for you. Either the players feel smart, or you get to have a bad guy come back, or whatever it is,
Yeah, absolutely. No, but spot on. So we should. That's like a whole episode of something that we should talk about. Tricks and twists.
Yes.
Let's remember that for the dice cast. Lionel says give them disadvantage on the save via that spell or grapple check. For the curveball, I guess.
Yeah.
If there's something that's occupying them, or if there's a good reason why that would be the case, I totally agree. RP Geography says the fight scene between Hector and Achilles is amazing.
Oh, stop. So good.
And you don't often see spear fights.
Never.
Do you?
Only in like kung fu movies do I see spear fights, but they're very like they're those kind of bendy spears, and it's a lot of like, While this is just like, oh, it's great. It's really well choreographed. It's great.
And you feel horrible at the end of it as well. Like that's a fight that you're not okay to see finish because like you quite like Hector.
Did I tell you this before about my friend?
Is it the same friend who thought that Gandalf said that there are crystals that need answering?
It's actually a different friend, but it's in that same friend group. He came to one of these lands and we were watching Troy, and he had never seen it before, right? And he was he was like, oh man, Hector's definitely going to win. He's the best fighter. And we were just like, what? Like, it's the Iliad. Who doesn't know this? He was like, yeah, Hector's deadly, man. He's like the best fighter. Achilles good and all, but like Hector's deadly. He thought Hector was going to win that fight.
Also, I would argue that in that fight, Achilles is presented as a far better fighter as well.
He fucking bums him start to finish. He's never in danger. Like Achilles is playing with him the whole time. He's like doing all this fancy spear shit. Like he's never struggling, And that's the way it should be. He's the best warrior of all time.
The son of a
Um,
god.
but just
Yeah.
yeah, imagine thinking that Hector was going to win. How different that movie would look if you didn't know Achilles was the winner from start. You know?
Well, that's refreshing. I think isn't that good to
Yeah,
know that, like, even a story so old, like one of the oldest stories that exists in this world,
possibly the
and
oldest story in existence.
it hasn't been spoiled for him. That's amazing. That's like finding someone that doesn't know that Darth Vader is. I won't say just in case people don't know, but you know. Amazing. So yeah, there's Troy for you. Yo, Troy viewing pie. Let's go. Says yeah, yeah, dude. Let's do a Troy game. That'd be amazing.
Ooh, yeah. I think Nico did one. We should do that. He loves Troy.
I always thought to myself, I wonder what's because like obviously people are escaping Troy as it's falling. Like I thought, oh, I would like to hear the story of what happened afterwards, and I know vaguely where they go and stuff, but it intrigued me.
Hmm.
Also, Sean Bean survived, which is another is
Amazingly,
another good
yeah.
thing. Literally because legend dictated that he had
Yeah.
to.
Oh, here's a great. Oh my god! Actually, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but if you've seen Troy a few times, there's a bit in that where we're just going to talk about Troy for the next hour. Sorry, I just love
We're
it.
talking about Troy for a bit now. No, it's fine.
There's a line where he's like, "We need Achilles to fight," and Agamemnon's like, "Oh, I can't trust him. He has no allegiance." And Sean Bean says, "I don't care about the man's allegiance. I care about his ability to win battles." And he just like does this like really dramatic pause before he says battles. It's
Yes,
incredible.
yes, he does. He
Battles.
does.
It's so good.
I also love the really convoluted way that, like, because, like I say, this film has issues. Like the way that Odysseus comes up with the Trojan horse is he's sat down, he's knackered after a fight, and he looks, and someone's just carving a wooden horse, and he goes, "That's good," in his northern way,
Yeah.
and then he goes. And then the scene cuts, and then they're like, "I have an idea." Like that's literally how they come up with it, which is excellent.
So great.
Anyway,
Battles.
yeah,
Oh god.
battles. I know what you mean. I know what you mean. So Czech says like treacle, your ass is in molasses. Dan Schmel, I'm so sorry, I don't know how to say your name.
Yeah,
Dan
Schnell.
says, "Okay, I'm petty. If someone makes a comment about the encounters being easy, it's game on."
Teach him a lesson.
So now we're going at yeah, but Lloyd, is that a good thing? Is that a good mentality to have? The DM versus the players rather than the DM accommodating the players.
No, but I know Dan isn't like that. So I know that he wouldn't like fuck the players just be pettiness. That is dangerous though. That like if players start feeling big about themselves, that you like throw something impossible at them. It's about like so I throw possible things at the players all the time, and I give them ridiculous situations where they should not be in, and you know this.
Yeah, I got a bit of flack for this the other day.
But I think that like I don't do that from a place of pettiness. I do it because the worlds that we play in are dangerous and they should feel dangerous. But if
Yes.
your objective is to fuck the players, then don't run D&D like that. It's collaborative storytelling. You're all in it together. You know, you're not in charge of the game. It's you're 1/5 of it. Or 1/3 of it, whatever it is.
Agreed. Completely agreed. Jeff Day says, "Don't worry about being unfair. As long as you're not outright breaking the rules for the sake of punishment, then bring it on in fair play, in my opinion."
Yep.
Yeah. And it's like Lloyd said earlier. There's 4 or 5 of them against just one of you. So remember, in that sense, that your brain is having to work overload to try and match them. So pull every trick in the book you have until they're cold on the ground, or whatever. Let's see. Dawson says that's so good. I think that's probably a reference to Troy. I think.
Yeah, actually.
RP Geography says I was pretty surprised when Jack died in Titanic. I mean, that ship looks sturdy. I love the line in Titanic because it's the one that's ripped from an older film. Like, if you guys are into, I'm sure most people here might know of Red Letter Media that do the Star Wars reviews, and they do some really great other shows as well. I'm a huge fan of Red Letter.
I love them.
The best. They're literally the best film critiques on the internet, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But there's one that they do about Titanic. and they show all the lines that James Cameron nicked from older films about the Titanic to put in Titanic. And there's one where he goes, "This ship is unsinkable," and then the captain goes, "She's made of iron, sir. I assure you, she can." like it puts it against the others, and it's like repeated. It's just a funny moment. I don't know why that. It's your turn to read some because I'm taking over, and it's technically on your channel, so I'm the guest.
It's a collaborative thing, we're 50-50. So Czech says, I approach encounters like fisticuffs. When you throw down at someone out in the street, you never know what's coming, for example. So I like to disguise the hard combat as easy. Oh, it's a gobbo. Way. Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, I think there's danger in that because if... so I've done it to my home group in the early game because they would go into a village and they would know that they are adventurers and that villages are filled with peasants, right? And they would be like going around bullying shopkeepers and taking their stuff, right? Because that makes sense and it's a smart thing to do for the players. And so one time they went into this shop and the guy had all these magical items and stuff, and he was like an older man or whatever, but he was still kind of muscly or whatever. And I had decided this was a retired adventurer, and so they fucked with him and he kicked the shit out of them. And they were like, "Oh, what?" And like that felt cheesy on my half, but like it can't always be the case that when you pick a fight with somebody that they happen to be an adventurer. But occasionally it's good to like have a casual encounter look like become a scary one.
I think so too, and also like if you're thinking about storytelling and things like that, like the example I give you is this, and I always use Star Wars, but if you know me, you're used to this by now. Han Solo spots a couple of stormtroopers, he screams and charges at them. They run away from him, from the Wookiee as well. They turn around a corner, and then there's just a bunch of stormtroopers waiting for them in the corridor that then start shooting at them. So I like the idea of people thinking that they've got this in the bag, and then that being turned on its head, and then they realize like, oh shit, we're outnumbered, and then like it's just a good way of playing with what people think the situation really is, which is just a neat thing to do in storytelling in general, I think. And also I love that Chex is talking about like he approaches it like he would an actual fight, which I love it.
Yeah.
The Scottish blood running through his veins. I love it. Dawson says Mythic Greek 5e one shot on the cards ?
He just tagged us in a game post that I put up from November 2015. I don't know how he fucking found that.
That's amazing.
But it's like a game post that I put up about trying to kill the Gorgon.
Oh, sweet. So it was like an actual Mythic Greek. That's really cool.
Obviously didn't happen. It should happen. I'll run that soon.
I was gonna say, well, like you or Dawson, man, we should do like a.
Yeah, I'd much rather he run it.
Dawson, you heard him. You heard the man.
My lord,
get to work, Lord. Romulus and Remus, RPG Geography says, pretty cool. I like the story of Romulus and Remus. Jeff Doty says, I'm down for a Troy game. And Dan says, Check's fucking gob holder.
Says, yeah, he says, unless you're running Team of Horrors, fuck that module, fuck it up the bum. It's terrible. It's awful. And those kind of modules are garbage. That's my opinion.
Let's talk about this, Lloyd, because I think I'll I don't know. I've run Team of Horrors and I've played in Team of Horrors. And I enjoyed it, but I went into it knowing what it was, and it's kind of we've tried like the whole thing of like, can you win a role-playing game has come up in the community lately, and I think that is one where people would consider you winning. You get to the end of Team of Horrors, but I don't necessarily think that's a good thing. I just think that it's I don't know. I enjoyed myself whilst I was playing it and whilst I ran it, but I can see why.
I think that Lamentations of the Flame Princess makes modules that are in the spirit of Tomb of Horrors, but are just infinitely better. Like, they make more sense. They're not like merciless to the players. They're not shitty. They have a plot. There's like a thing going on. They're like well designed. The traps are clever. It's just really way better in every possible way. Tomb of Horrors is a relic from the past. It's fucking garbage, and if you like it, you're a shitlord.
That I bow to your infinite wisdom, as I am clearly a shitlord, Lloyd. No, I still have a place in my heart for Tuva Harris, and I don't care what you say. No,
Your tiny shriveled heart.
yeah, it's true. It's what it did to me, Tuva Harris. Although, in fairness, like D&D, like I'm all about like the, I don't know, modules. I don't really go for modules an awful lot, to be honest. So it's got to be something special if I do.
I don't go for them at all in D&D. I think the D&D modules are, but the Lamentations
Mm.
modules are out of this world good. They're incredibly good. Really, really, like, just fucking really good. I like settings that I couldn't come up with, traps I couldn't come up with, creatures I couldn't come up with. It's all this stuff that makes them worthwhile, in my opinion.
No, absolutely. And I think lately with the D&D stuff that they're releasing, I think, yeah, I wouldn't really go into Storm King's Thunder or anything like that. Not for me.
Not my cup of tea.
No. Check says, I'll tell you what though, the God of War games play like epic Greek fantasy game. Yeah,
those were good
I
games.
do like God of War. Yeah, I'm excited for the next one as well because it's going into your territory, Lloyd. It's going into Vikings, which is pretty rad. Checks then says the Star Wars example, the running into stormtroopers, the next player in initiative has the call on fight or flight. Should I can't read, Lloyd.
Should that be, or should there be a pause and discuss? That's a good question. So basically, like, if you run around the corner and there are stormtroopers and it's your turn, do you decide what happens to the party, or do you get to go, what are we going to do, guys? I think you don't get to decide. Like, you don't get to talk about it. They're shooting at you. What are you going to do? You know?
No, I'm definitely, yeah. I did away with that kind of thing in my games a long time ago. Like, if something's happening immediately, you have to decide then and there. You don't look to your left and say, guys, what are we going to do to tactically ensure that we come out of this on top? Because no, come on now, we're better than that.
There's with my home group, they do. So they're, I mean, they've been playing RPGs for like a year now, maybe, but like they're still new to they're not immersed in the hobby. You know, they just do it on a Thursday in my house, and like it's a bit of crack. You know, it's beer and pretzels. They're not like immersed in it, so they don't like do a lot with it. You know, apart from hang out on a Thursday. And so they do this thing when they're talking to an NPC. They'll talk to each other about what they're going to say next, or they'll talk about what their plans are. And so what I started doing is I've just been role playing the NPC as if the NPC is there when they're speaking. You know, I can hear what you're saying. And so it's become this weird, like, it's almost it's always sunny in Philadelphia sort of thing where they're like chatting amongst themselves like they do in that show, you know, and there are people. But slowly they're learning to not do it, you know, but it's very funny, like.
But that's good, and that's like a really fun way of teaching them that, you know, people are like they're real human beings in that context. You know, they're real people, and that you can't just look to people. And also, if they turn, this is something that I've done. If they say, "Oh, okay, well, I'm going to turn and whisper to one of my friends," then they then start reacting in really weird ways, like you would. You'd be like,
"Yeah,
I'm sorry, am I interrupting something?" Like, what are you doing? Especially in this kind of setting where someone could be whispering, they could be planning to rob them, murder them, you know?
Yeah.
Panic is the best thing to incite in your NPCs because it starts shit for players. That's the best thing to do if they start doing that kind of thing. Run to the guards. That's the other thing. Yeah. Good help. These people are insane. Lionel says, "Don't hold back, Lloyd. Tell us how you feels." I suppose that's in response to Tomb Horrors, I think, because Jeff Doherty then says, "Yes, Tomb Horrors is so bad." Oh well, there we go.
Yep, you're wrong.
Jack says, "I can trust the word of someone with a man bun." Can't. Sorry.
Hey, Jack, you get a fucking haircut. Shut up, like. Have you seen his girly long hair? What's that about? For sake. Little short hair.
Dan says, if you read about Gary Gygax's style, he is everything bad that a DM can be.
Wouldn't surprise me at all.
Interesting.
Wouldn't surprise me at all. D&D back in the day was like real boring.
It was more about strategy, wasn't it? Like it came from like from chainmail and things like that. So Yeah.
Like there's real value
No, well, I
to
don't.
like the old D&D boxes and stuff. I think like it's a nice way to play sometimes, but I just think fifth edition is far better than those editions in my humble opinion.
I always hold the fire. I always hold and keep the flame for 3.5 personally. And I know I am a dwindling species in that regard, but
Tell
never
you
mind.
what, in another life you'd have been a Pathfinder dweeb and we never would have met.
I do kind of like Pathfinder, but like at this, like in fact, I tell you what sold me on fifth edition was actually coming into this community. Actually,
I might have to kick
um,
you from the call here, Rob, for your
yeah.
Pathfinder leanings.
Why don't okay? Because I would like to know what you don't like about Pathfinder.
A lot.
Not that I'm going to stick up for it, but like I'm just
No,
curious.
no, I don't like a lot of things about it. I don't like its kitchen sink setting. I don't like the insane power creep. I don't like the fact that there are better and worse classes, like classes that are just mechanically better than others. That shouldn't be the case. Like demonstrably better. I don't like the bloat, the fact that there are hundreds of supplements and dozens of classes and more prestige classes and 500 races. I think it's insane. That's most of the stuff. I don't like the rules. It's extremely crunchy. It's really complicated. It's got a page for grappling rules. Stick that up your bum and fuck it to the moon, is what I think about that.
Okay, I will say this. I will say, yeah, I get, and as a newcomer into the game, I get absolutely like the rules are. There's too much of it. I agree with you there. What I disagree with you is the bloat. I absolutely love the bloat, and no, that goes back into when I was a little dweeb, and I was thinking to myself, how can I make a rad assassin? And I happened to look into one of the, and this is for 3.5 rather than Pathfinder. Look into one of the books of 1,000 that I downloaded onto my laptop, and like there's just so much content there. Like I feel bad completely dismissing it, but I also agree with your points as well. In fifth edition, is the way of the future. I feel, but there we go.
Yeah, I think like I was saying, when I was a teenager and I didn't play role playing games because I had no friends who would play them, I would just read all the 3.5 books and like be fascinated by like particularly there was Lords of Madness was a great one.
Yes. Oh wow.
Fantastic book. And what was the other one? Libris Mortis, which was like the undead book. It's fantastic.
Yep.
There's some really cool
Yep.
stuff there, but like, and there was like 100 bestiaries, which was great, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But just when you compare it to 5e and how versatile 5e is and how simple it is compared to it and how all the classes are relevant, I just think it's like there's no competition.
I actually disagree with you slightly. I think some classes are better in 5e than others.
All classes apart from the ranger are relevant, I would say.
Okay, let me think. I want to try and counter, but I can't think of one off the top of my head. I think the bard's pretty lame, personally.
That is bullshit, Rob. The bard is possibly the best class in the game.
Yeah.
It's possibly the most versatile and most useful class in the game. They have access to arcane spells, healing spells. They have exceptional skill selection. They're good at combat. They're fucking great. They're really good at everything.
They ruin a lot as well.
What are they ruin?
I had a bard fucking drop a mammoth on one of my dragons. I'm salty about bards.
Drop a mammoth on your dragon. That's incredible.
All right, mechanically perhaps, but I just dislike them.
Sure. But they're very, very good mechanically. I think the only one that isn't is the ranger. I think all the other classes are competitive and they're all really good at what they're supposed to do.
I'm trying to think because I just want to disagree with you, but I can't. So we're going to move on and pretend that didn't happen.
No, I am the master.
Yeah, I'm sorry about no. I know, but bards are pretty great. And they are. I just have a sore spot still from that. I wasn't happy. They you know what they are. I think bards are. You know when they can like give you, is it bardic inspiration?
Yeah.
That's a fucking nightmare.
It is a nightmare. Yeah,
that's a nightmare as a DM. Like
Yeah.
they go when someone rolls and they say, "Oh, I miss," and they go, roll this," and they roll the fucking dice and they go, "No, actually, I hit." And I'm like, I hate you so much. I want
Yeah,
you to
fuck
just
off with that.
go into a gut, fuck off, and die. No.
Yeah, I think
Um,
bardic inspiration is an interesting concept if it's done right. But it also should not be the case that the bard is always like, "Oh, but don't forget, I gave you bardic inspiration." Fuck off. It's not
that's
your turn.
exactly it.
Shut up.
That's exactly it. Oh my goodness. No, I completely agree that yes, absolutely, they are a good mechanically, they are very good, but I find that distasteful.
So salty, Rob.
Really salty. I'm sorry. I just think of that fucking mammoth, man.
Yeah.
Where do we even get to? It's your turn.
Oh, geez, who knows? Okay, so we got to Gary Gygax's style, I think.
Yeah,
Ooh,
that's it. Yeah, yeah.
right. So it's Czech says it's a complete different style of games these days. The written material hasn't caught up to player innovation. Totally agree with that. The modules feel like they're written by old people who want to play D. Well, I guess maybe like we are a minority. I feel like a lot of people play D&D the way that it's intended, which is like, I'm a hero and I'm going to this place and I'm going to play a magic item. You know, like that's how most people play it. But yeah, I don't know. So because why is all mine you can't read? That's not a sentence, Chex. Is the accent that thick? The hell? Yeah, you write in a
That it
fucking
bleeds into your grammar.
yeah. Mike says Numenera. I'll see myself out. I don't understand what you mean. Mike, Numenera is a good game overall. A good setting, I would say. Not a
It
great
is.
game.
It is. Oh, okay. I enjoy. I've only been in one Numenera campaign. I enjoyed it.
I love it. I
But
love the
that
setting
was
a
because of
lot.
the setting. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think the game is weak in certain parts, particularly combat. It's weak at. Man says, bah, Mike, we're talking about Santa Saint Nick. Are we? Dan says we just stab him. I can hear you. That's what we were talking about earlier with the people watching you while people talking to each other while an NPC watches.
Oh yeah, yeah. God, we should. Yeah.
Skip through a lot of this because it's been we went on a serious tangent there.
We did. We
people,
got with the whole thing about Pathfinder Rangers.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Nico says, "Stick that up your bum and fuck it to the moon." Made me laugh till I cried. Good. That's my hope. Pathfinder Adventure Paths are, for the most part, really well done and surpasses the D&D stuff. I have heard that the Adventure Paths are deadly, but they're really, really good. I wish they would make them for 5e. That'd be nice. People say Bard is the best class. Like I say, I love the Bard and actually like the Ranger. Bards. Next, you'll say Halflings and Gnomes are worthwhile. No, Halflings and Gnomes are a waste of time. I think.
I've actually, in fact, I won't go into this now, but I've been like I was saying with the Dragonborn earlier, and rising to the challenge and just see if I can make them work. I've actually gone to great lengths to make halflings and gnomes at least worthwhile in being there. And I'll tell you what, it's a struggle. It is a constant struggle. So I basically consider them as bastardizations of. I won't go into it, but yeah, it's difficult in my opinion.
No fucking time for them. Gnomes can just,
Which I love because even in Lord of the Rings, we don't have any. The game that you run, we don't have any hobbits.
No, and we never will.
Is it even hobbits? Even hobbits, like.
No, hobbits are more okay. I think they're essential to the story of Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit, obviously, and there's something about them that I like. But I think that players tend to play hobbits that are just like. Do you know what a kender is? From
You what? Sorry.
Do you know what a kender is from way back in
No.
D&D? Like these fucking idiot dwarves that would like steal all this stuff. They would like steal all this stuff. And I feel like that's how people play hobbits. That they're just like, oh, my name is Flufflebum Wigglyworm, and like, I'm gonna go over here. I'm gonna steal this fork. And just like, yeah.
Yeah, I get you there. And I think it's weird. Like, I think it would be, we were talking about snowflakes earlier. I think it is so rare that you get a hobbit that is actually worthwhile and going an adventure. The only ones that you see worthwhile are the ones that are featured in The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, because They're the ones that make a difference. The rest are more than happy just to sit on their ass and let the world go by, which is a dreadful trait to have as a collective species.
Yeah.
So they deserve what they get in Scaring of the Shire, in my humble opinion. Anyway, and counterbalance, Jeff says Rangers are fairly powerful in mid-level too. Level 5, 7-ish, they kick butt.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't care.
I won't know. I won't be one. Yeah, bless them. Lionel says you've got to kick something. Don't know what that's referring to. Tech says Spellless Ranger or Unearth Arcana Deep Stalker I'm keen on.
Rangers are for dweebs, is my take.
Choose the Wanderer from against. I have been so impressed with that class. Like for in Lloyd's game, I love the class and I love my character in that game because of it. Rangers suck end game, but I never play that far, says Lionel. There. Czech says Crow was a badass. I don't know who Crow was. Do you know who Crow is?
Crow was in Gunnarsson's adventuring party way back in the day.
Oh. Okay. Jeff says, yeah, I never really play anything above level 10 for the most part. Right, okay, that's something I want to talk about. What is everyone's shit about stopping at level 10? I know I get certain settings where you don't want there to be people that are unearthly in their power level. Personally, I don't get what the fuss is. They're up to level 20 for a reason. What's your point? What's your thought, Lloyd?
What's your point?
What's your point, Lloyd?
Okay, so my setting is very low fantasy.
Yep.
And for that reason, player characters, when they get above level 10, you're talking about hundreds of hit points. And I think it's unrealistic. It loses lethality for players. They're no longer threatened by dweebs. They can't just get shanked in an alleyway and die. They're just, they can be unarmed and unarmored and still come out on top against most things at level 10. Most people. And so for Iskloft, it's just not going to happen. And I think that the highest level people in Iskloft are probably level 10. And those are like legendary warriors, because that's really fucking powerful for a human being when you think about the things you can do at level 10 and the hit points that you have. And I think if it goes beyond that, it doesn't fit with Iskloft. I have no problem with it in other settings at all.
Yeah.
Except for Middle-earth, because I think in Middle-earth as well, there's a level, right? You can only become Aragorn, and beyond that, there's no human better and more capable of fighting than Aragorn.
True.
Until you become an elf, right? And then it's like a different story. So the settings I tend to run tend to be low level. Apart from the fact that I just literally today posted a level 30 game that I'm going to run. Because I haven't done that in ages. I used to run a couple, 2 or 3 a year. I'd run level 20 games just to see what, just to try them out and stuff. So I'm going to run a really high level game and see what the crack is.
No, totally with you there, man. Like, and I get that it's a totally logical thing to have an Iskloft and for Middle Earth, absolutely. But I think if your setting is fantasy and it has magic and it deals with all that kind of stuff, then why not go to level 20? I personally like the argument towards the hit points. Like, I never really look at hit points as someone's health. I look at it as their ability to stop someone else from killing them. So that involves, how they're dealing with it in the fight. So that's the way I look at it. But yeah, interesting, very interesting. Linus says my PF Ranger is spellless. Pathfinder Ranger, I guess that means. Is that PF Ranger? No, I don't know. Dan says fucking bard with lucky perk and a paladin in a party that never fails saves.
Fucking lucky feat is the worst. I fucking hate it, man. It's such bullshit. Oh, I never roll a 1 ever. Fuck off. I hate it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I completely agree with that. I'm not a fan of that either.
Halfling get it for free, which is why you can't be a halfling.
Yeah. I forgot about that. They do, don't they? Jeez.
Halflings are actually mechanically very powerful.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Like they've got a lot going for them, other than anything to do with their existence. I've really, really tried to make them all right in my setting, but it's hard work.
It is hard work. It's hard work to make them cool. And I think that they're kind of comical, and I think the same thing for gnomes. And so I really struggle to fit them into the settings that I enjoy running, right? Which are like gritty, brutal, like struggle to survive settings. And I feel like gnomes are called things like fucking sparkle gem and that kind of shit. And I just don't think it fits in any of the settings that I like to play in. And I think the same for halflings.
I was really tempted. I didn't in the end, but I was tempted to basically have halflings and gnomes basically just be horrific genetic throwbacks, where they're all just these horrible mutated people that sort of exist, and basically exist in my setting, but be so detrimental to be one that no one would ever want to play one. But I didn't in the end. I didn't in the end. I'm going to skip through some of these because we need to catch up. So I'm going to find a question. Dan says, "What distinguishes a good DM from a great one?" Scene where the DM brought it to the next level. He continues. Is a good DM.
Fucking hell! I don't know. What makes a great DM? Like good referee skills, excellent improvising, good ability to portray different characters, a good head for designing encounters. There's so much that goes into it to be a great DM as opposed to an average one.
It's all sorts of things, it should be something that you put on your CV because of the amount of things that you have to be good at to be great at being a DM. I think one of the most important ones for me, and it sort of ties into improvisation, is the thing that George R.R. Martin said about building Westeros that I've always held true in my heart ever since I heard him say it. And that was that when talking about epic fantasy settings and world building in particular, you imagine your world as an iceberg, okay? And that the story you're trying to tell, take Lord of the Rings, for example. Lord of the Rings is just the tip of the iceberg. Middle Earth is all of the iceberg that lies beneath the water. The trick is that when you're first starting out, is that actually you don't have an iceberg, you have some ice and a raft. There's nothing under the water. It's a magician's trick that people don't see beneath the raft to understand that it's a raft there. And I think that's a really, really smart way of looking at it. And I've done it before, and it buys into improvisation, and it's about feeding certain bits of information that you little tidbits of information that you allude to that you don't go into detail about.
Yeah.
And it provides sort of this curious air of mystery around everything that you're saying. As long as you can maintain that and sort of basically bullshit well enough to basically pull it off, there's no stopping you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'd say is something that you'd have to be really good at to be a great DM, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think there's so much that goes into it though, and it's really hard to quantify as well what makes a great DM. You have to be a good storyteller, and that's not something that you can quantify. The ability to tell a good story, it requires charisma, it requires having a good vocabulary, it requires understanding emotions and descriptions. It's there's a lot that goes into it, and
a good entertainer.
Yep,
as well.
And you're kind of constantly learning. You get better at it by watching other people, by playing in games with other DMs, and practice.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not some lofty thing that you're born into. Everyone develops in their own way, I guess.
I've run so many shit games, so many bad games. But you have to run loads of shit games to run one good one,
That's very true. That's very true. Check says, Bluffle Bum Wiggly Bum, my next Iscloth Barbarian.
Yeah.
We have that to look forward to in the future.
Yeah.
I dare say he will last long. DM brought it to the next level, question mark. DM brought it to the next level.
That's the next
part sorry,
of his question.
Yeah, that was the next part of his question. Yeah, what you answered. So, Marquise, hello, Marquise says, Rangers are for the weeks.
What? Oh, I said Rangers are for the weaves, I think, and he must have misheard me. Coming in here, can't even listen.
Can't even listen, can he?
This has become quite a long hangout, Rob.
This has become quite a long hat, hasn't it? Right. Shall we? Well, what should we do? Let's take a few more
Yeah,
questions and then we'll.
it's well past my bedtime.
In mine too. I didn't think we were going to be doing this. I've enjoyed it, man.
Yeah, we should do it more frequently.
Okay, guys, hit us with your most amazing, complicated questions to end the stream on. And I'm just going to keep going into the chat, finding questions now, not just random comments. Um,
Ain't no questions, just statements.
Just statements. This is something. Yeah. What was that we were on where we were just? That was it. We were on the Dice Cast and we asked people to ask us questions, and there were just people saying, "This is this," and we were like, "That's not a question. That's not a question either." I am going to read this though because it looks insightful. Jeff Doty says a lot of the game breaks down above level 10. HP growth is so much bigger than damage growth outside of spellcasters. I don't mind playing a high level game, but it's like once a year thing for me. I disagree. I think HP is something you can eradicate if you want because you're the DM. you can save or die. Bring out back the good old save or die. There are spells in D&D that can eradicate people and that not touch their health. So I disagree. I know he said spellcasters admittedly, but like think of numbers. Then have an army march on one person. You'll finish them. I disagree with that personally, but there we go.
I think that if you are playing a game for a long time and you achieve high level, I think the game can grow organically with you.
Yeah, that's how I've always done it. Yeah.
I think, and it's just the scope of the game changes if you're high level because your challenges are going to be different. And so I would think that in a traditional D&D game, you start off doing the adventuring shit. You're going into caves, you're finding treasure, and then when you hit a high level, you're thinking politically, and you're thinking kingdom wide.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I've never, this is something I should say, when talking about high level, I've never just started at high level. It's always been something that I've achieved, I say achieved, it's always something that I've leveled up to, it's not, I don't start level 15 or whatever, it's always been characters that, in fact, Sorcerer, I got to level 30 something. I was that invested and we kept going. I know, but it was worth it. And the story was mega. Let me see. Marquis is accusing people. I don't know if it's us or people in the chat of circle jerking, but that's my favorite thing to do, man. Can't help it. He's also saying, yeah, just there we go. Marquis is threatening to make some counter videos.
Ooh.
By all means, mate. If you're happy to sit through watch all of this stream back and make little notes and then counter everything we say, we can't wait. We will be more than happy to rebut your rebuttals to these things, though, mate. To be fair, generally speaking, I'm trying to find some. Right, okay.
There's questions at the end here.
Okay, go.
Check says, I have this weird growth. Should I see a doctor? No.
It's so late.
Why are Vikings such dweebs? It's because your dad's a coward and his favorite film is Footloose. That's why. What's your favorite dragon type? Silver. I always loved in the 3rd edition Monster Manual the picture of the silver dragon. I thought it was great. There was this huge fucking thing, and there was a little man following him. It was great.
I've got to say probably either black or red. I'd say.
Yeah, black has those sick horns. That's right.
Yes, horns, admittedly, but I like red. I mean, it's the go-to, admittedly, but that's why I find them so interesting. Is to take something that's so stereotypical and do something with it, and I like them. I just like the red dragon personally. I think they're pretty badass, and if you do them well, they are rad. I'll do something about Zorfintal. I keep on talking about Zorfintal, and I should stop. But I will do a whole thing one day. The Great Game of Dragons. Should we make this the last one then? So
yeah.
Let's have one question from the chat, and we will answer it.
Dan says, "What's your favorite encounter you've played in recently?"
You first.
So I ran Hunted the other day, and that's the start of that game. Is probably my favorite encounter I've ever run. Players were near death, absolutely knackered and unarmored, badly injured, and there was just like this fucking guy, like not a warrior really, just like a guy who had an axe. And they were level 5 characters, and they had to like deal with that one man, and he killed one of them in the first turn of the round of the combat. It was so horrible and violent. And then there was another guy, and they had to choke him to death because they had no weapons. And I just thought that was incredibly iscloft and incredibly brutal. I think that's probably the best encounter I've ever run. I loved it.
Is it recent? You said recent encounters,
Yes.
didn't he?
Yeah, it's from Hunted, so like the most recent game I ran.
Yeah. In terms of recent ones, I probably something was trying to think of one. I usually say the Cloud March battle because it was me sort of the first one that I ran online properly, and it was received very well. But I won't go with that one. I will say Lawkeepers Chapter 3, they had to face a doppelganger who was basically mocking them by transforming into the people that she was fighting, mocking them in that way. So I enjoyed doing that because it meant that I got to slightly badly pretend to be the other players in the stream, but also because not everyone made it out of that fight as well. That was one that cost the party, and I particularly enjoyed that because no one expected it. So there we go. And Lloyd is yawning. I am knackered, and I've got to go and do some acting in 6 hours. So, but yeah.
Yeah, this is really fun. This is what we'll do instead of live videos, maybe sometimes.
Yeah, man, that's a great idea.
It was very fun. I enjoyed it. There's a huge spider over there. Fuck me dead. Ah! Got him.
You've witnessed murder upon the stream. That's the way we'll end every stream. Sacrificial insect killing.
Yep. Yeah, so hopefully you guys enjoyed watching this fucking chaos for the last, 2 hours. I think this was a lot of fun. We should do it again. And if we can get a crowd like this in every time, it'd be great.
Hells yes.
Yeah. Right. Thanks, Rob, from Performance Check. I guess I should do the usual YouTube stuff. If you like Rob, you could go see his channel, which is called Performance Check, where he does games and talks about role-playing games, like on this channel. Go like that.
In every way. It's just the same.
Yeah.
More of the same.
Same old shit. Different shovel. So thanks, guys. Talk to you later.